Good evening, good evening, good evening. It's Mark Wilkinson here, live from London. We are going across 8 different platforms, 2 YouTube channels, a LinkedIn channel, 5 Facebook pages, and of course, we are recording this to go out on our podcasts and everything as well. Tonight is a very, very special evening. I've decided to start taking the straight talking interviews only to once a month. And with them being once a month, it means that we have very, very special guests. And we can build them up and work with them and actually get things moving in a really positive fashion. And tonight is a very, very special event. For the last 10 years or so, while I've been remixing my life, I've been coming back to or bounced back by working in construction. And many of you will have read Life Remixed, and I've bounced back by working in construction, remixing my own life in order to work in health and safety because it was something that spoke to me after I remixed my life to an extent and started to get myself into a positive place. So I started to want other people to have a good day at work. So I got into health and safety. And by being in health and safety, I worked at the Olympic Games and then I went to Heathrow Airport. And Heathrow Airport is one of the safest places, or certainly, before the pandemic, now it is what it is, but it will bounce back eventually. But the bottom line is that Heathrow Airport is one of the best places to work that I've ever worked, alongside the Olympic Games. Really, really wonderful place, fantastic culture. And I remember going on a induction, and I went on an induction for a construction site, and it was being run by Mace Construction. And Mace Construction were running this induction, and every single person who went through the induction to get onto site sat and watched a short video in the induction. And it was Jason Anker, a fall from heights, that's what it was called. And I remember watching it, and this is like almost 10 years ago now. I remember watching it and I could not get out of my mind. I was like, that is such a powerful story for anyone working any kind of construction site, or anywhere where you might work at height, or indeed anywhere where you have to make decisions, any high risk environment, but it could be anywhere really. And I never forgot the video, and I was like, wow, that's really powerful. And I looked it up. I got in touch with Jason in his office and his daughter. I got a couple of copies of the video from them. And that continued through another video that Jason made as well, which is really, really powerful. Proud to be Safe is the name of his company. And we'll talk more about the second video that he made as well with his family, particularly with his son and daughter, Abby and Sam. Wonderful children and wonderful, powerful story. And I've put that into every single construction induction that I've been involved in for the last 8 years, or 5 years, maybe 6 years. But I've put that into every single induction because it's so powerful. Jason's story from the 10 years ago one I saw to maybe 5-6 years ago, whatever it was, watching these videos and sharing them with other people so that they can understand them. And then during that time, Heathrow brought in Jason Anker to speak. And I found out he was become an MBE. He turned his life around to such an extent that he'd become an MBE for his work, member of the British Empire, for that work that he's been doing in the last few years, or the last decade or more, around construction and construction safety. And that alone just made me feel like this guy's amazing. Then he started talking on the stage, and me hearing him speak, live and actually sharing his stories, and some of the stuff we'll cover tonight, just fabulous, just touched my heart in a way where I was just like, wow, more and more people need to hear about this, and more people need to listen to this guy, because he's turned it around. Really, he has remixed his entire life himself, and he's turned it around from what can only be described as, a horrible accident that I'm reading about in his book at the moment. I'm reading his book, Paralysis to Success, Bouncing Back from Adversity. I highly recommend that you all grab a copy. It's amazing. I mean, there's stuff in here that many of us can just never relate to, about when he fell from the ladder and he couldn't feel his legs and stuff like that. Really, really, really powerful. Not only all of that, he's a fantastic bloke. And I've got to know him over the last few years, met him a few times, shook his hand a couple of times at events, introduced myself when I was at Heathrow Airport, and then when I was at the residential builder that I was at after that. Really, really enjoyed meeting him every single time. He also supports one of the other teams that's won the European Cup, and that would be Nottingham Forest. So Nottingham Forest and Chelsea, the only London team to have won it. Just all the other teams have just switched off. But anyway, look, it's all fun and games, right? And Jason's a top fella, and you're gonna love meeting him. It's gonna be a great interview, and I'm really looking forward to you guys being a part of it. If you want to be a part of it, comment wherever you're watching from. Hopefully it's all going to come up on the screen. I'll share it with Jason as well. If you've got any words you want to share with him or any questions, then please do. But without further ado, let's bring Jason in and get this conversation underway. Here he is. Here we go. Hello, Jace.
Nice one, Mark. How you doing, matey?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Look at the Nottingham Forest top behind you. Look.
I positioned it. I just been positioned it. Make sure I got the shot in.
That's why that's over there. Look. But so I mean, the story behind obviously you got J Anker MBE on the back of the shirt. Is it a number 3? Is it?
Number 3, Psycho, Stuart Pearce was my hero. It was a manager at the time. My mate Sean, he directed into Forest, said I got an MBE, and it was Stuart Pearce was in charge. My hero, couldn't do no wrong. Even though the team was playing crap, Stuart Pearce was the manager. You know what I mean? And they got me on the pitch before the game, give him a shirt, and then Sean says, "Can you get all the players to sign it?" And it was the day that Stuart Pearce got sacked. His name's not on the shirt.
He's down the road.
Yeah, he's down the road somewhere. So yeah, bit of a thing. So if he's listening, I give him a shirt.
Sorry, Stu.
Yeah.
Mate, that's a great story. I love it. And of course, you and me are of a similar age, right? So I guess you remember the European Cup wins and stuff like that for Forest.
Yeah, I mean, I was 10 years old at the time.
Yeah.
You never forget it because it was just magical. We're never ever going to be that team ever again. No, not to what. We're just not. But it's just magical memories. And I know a lot of people say, "Oh, you live on your past and all this," but we've got it.
At least you've got a past. Enjoy it.
Exactly. You know what
I
I mean?
mean that documentary, I Believe in Miracles. I mean that whole story, the soundtrack to that as well, the music, the soul, the energy. I mean, we'll talk about music in a bit, but the music, the energy, the soulful sounds set to that Nottingham Forest team with John Robertson and Brian Clough. I mean, what a character Brian Clough was. I mean, incredible. I loved them. There was a bit they were talking about the tactics, and they were going. It's Viv Anderson. He's going tactics. He goes, "We didn't have any tactics." He said, "What should we do at a free kick, boss?" He goes, "Just have a shot." He goes, then he goes, "What should we do if it's indirect?" He goes, "Knock it to the side and have a shot."
That's basic stuff, wasn't it? But people sort of joke about it, but man management, he just knew how to treat people. He knew to hug, he knew to shout at, he knew to give a bollocking to. That was his style, and it worked. He got a misfit of players, not the greatest players in the world, but he bonded them into a team that just performed every single time. And that's what all you can ask for from management, isn't it? To bond the team.
That's right. He was an absolute master at it, and for him to actually get so close with Derby County, and then obviously had to go through he went through his own life remix, didn't he? Brighton and all that, and then comes to Forest, who's like one of their biggest rivals, and turns Forest into this team that wins the European Cup not once but twice. Man management and leadership, fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. And I recommend anyone to watch I Believe in Miracles if you haven't watched it.
Great film.
Brilliant film. I have watched it about 30 times because I just love the soundtrack. So yeah, look, we're getting lots of vibes. We're getting lots of people that are really interested in this as well. We've got Jason, a good friend of mine, Jason, saying looking forward to listening to Jason from Jason. We've got Marcus in Ireland saying looking forward to hearing the story, Jason. So positive. And then, of course, Emma saying, I've been really looking forward to this. That's great. If you guys would like to be a part of this stream, Jason and I are going to be here for a while having a chat. Just pop your comments up and I can put them on the screen. So, obviously, Jason, I've been reading a bit about your childhood, of course. And I'm about halfway through the book and I'm going to keep going because I love it. I mean, I'm very familiar with your story. But there's lots of people that aren't familiar about your story. Why don't we just talk about the headline first, which is obviously it's not about the fall, it's about the bounce. That's basically how you're positioning it at the moment, isn't it? Give us a bit of a headline of that before we go back to your childhood sort of thing.
Yeah. When I first started speaking sort of 10 years ago, it was a typical don't be like me story. So I talk about my accident and what went through in my life and hoping that people would be that shocked by what I went through that they would work safely. But for me, I was sort of still unfulfilled. I was job, doing it, earning the money, but I never got really that excited about what I was doing. And I think I was still struggling. I was still struggling so much personally, and yet I appeared to have it all. You know, the nice house, nice car, money in the bank, holidays, and yet I was dreadfully unhappy, and I didn't know how to, just didn't know how to cope. And I think for me, the bounce that I'm on in the last few years it is literally a bounce. You know, I've gone from being okay in my life to just thriving, just wake up every morning raring to go. And what's the day going to bring? And it's you know, it was a long journey for me. You know, best part of the quarter of a century, just surviving from day to day. I know we'll go into more details a bit later on.
Yeah. I mean, I want to talk about that for sure. I mean,
I think the bounce for me is that. I mean, we was going to call the book that actually, and she talked it out a bit. Just says it's not quite right for a book, but the bounce is everything for me. You know, I can talk about it before, and I do, but I really enjoy talking about the bounce, how I built my life back up, and I think that's part. You know, it's the main part of the story. You know, you can recover from these things. It just took me a long time.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that was in my mind as well was I don't know if you ever saw this, but there was an interview with Ian Dowie, and Ian Dowie was talking about, he came up with this new word, and it was like we've lost the game, you know, we've all been knocked back a little bit, but we need to see what our bounce back ability is like. Yeah. And they decided that was a new word. And I think it might even be in the dictionary now. Bounce back ability is like.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah. So Lewis is here. Lewis Senior's here. Great to have Lewis on board there. Look, excited to hear Jason's story, and thanks for the opportunity. That's great. And yeah, Lewis is going to pop up in this story with e-colors, because we've been talking a bit about that recently as well, and doing some interesting work together. So, but let's talk about this. You know, the similarities. I mean, I reached out to you and I sent you Life Remixed, and you started reading it. Thanks, mate. And you started reading it, and there was so many similarities between you and I as young people. I mean, they're just the sort of headlines for me were obviously your music, you being a people pleaser, sometimes lacking a bit of focus, and then obviously maybe sort of settling down into some alcohol and some addictions. But talk about the music, because obviously you're very musically orientated as a kid, weren't you?
Yeah, pretty much so. My brother, especially, was 7 years older than me. He was really into the northern scene. He used to do all these nights, all nice and that, and tell me all the stories of what we used to get, you know, what the scene was and that. So I sort of grew up in background, but I love all music, you know, very soulful stuff. But then, you know, music's always been part of my life. Indie, obviously the dance stuff sort of took off in my life a little bit, but I've always had that sort of vibe for music. And you know, especially when I've been in dark places, music in some ways saved me, and a bit of a cliche, but it did. Music's always been there. Always been a part of my life, having music in the background. So yeah.
Yes, well, music can help change your state, can't it? You know, it can actually, like, you know, if you're feeling down but you put on a happy song, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, you know, it can change. And obviously with the DJ mixes I've been doing on Saturday nights, you know, people have been in lockdown. It's not been all like, you know, fun and games, and yet you stick some music on and people are partying at home and sending me videos of them dancing and all sorts. It's great. Yeah. But you tried a few musical instruments, didn't you? The drums, the guitar.
Couldn't play anything. I was desperate to be a musician, desperate. But Mum always said I had drums, guitars. If I couldn't play them straight away, I just went on to the next one. So yeah, I was a failed musician. Yeah.
Well, what's interesting is actually, you know, we've looked at this together, haven't we? With becoming, like, you know, or understanding that we have this top color yellow tendency in e-colors, and actually sometimes we're very fast paced. But we can lack a bit of focus, and we can, you know, if we can't master something, we get bored easily, and then we go on, don't we, onto the next thing, you know?
Absolutely.
You know, but it is what it is. But then, you know, you mentioned a lot about your emotions as a young man as well, you know, because you had your mum and your stepdad, who you called dad, and then your actual real dad, and you said you were always trying to sort of like please everybody a lot of the time.
Yeah, you know, I was such a young age. I was about 4 or 5 at the time, but you know, going to my real dad's for the weekend and then going back to my mum and stepdad's and feel really guilty about, you know, leaving. And, you know, no one spoke. No one spoke about it. I mean, back then it was very strange to have a stepdad anyway. You know, in my school, you know, school trips, and your dad was going, and it'd say Fred Knight. I said, who's that? It was my dad, but he's got a different name, because no one had, it wasn't like today, was it? Everyone had the dad, and that was it. So, but yeah, I mean, my stepdad's my dad. You know, he's brought me up. He's just been there from day one. So, you know, I don't even think about my dad. I haven't seen him for years. You know, I know he's still alive somewhere, but I've just not seen him. He's not been in touch for years. So, you know, growing up, it did cause a lot of problems. I can remember being about 7 or 8 and being asked to change my surname, which probably would have suited my life better. But, you know, but at the time, I was so unsure what to do. You know, thinking of someone's, you know, being 7 or 8 years old, thinking about how my dad would feel. You know,
it's a lot for a young lad to take on, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, I wish I'd done it now. You know, I don't know what stopped me. We never came back, but to have them feelings at such a young age about the right thing to do, not wanting to upset people's feelings, bit strange to have them sort of feelings at such a young age. But
I remember my dad was going through a lot of depression. I believe he had some PTSD after World War II, and I was 11 years old. And I remember him asking me if everything would be all right. And I was kind of like, you what? Like, you know, you're my dad. You know, aren't you supposed to be like telling me that everything's going to be all right? Do you know what I mean? And it was just, you know, but we, you know, you go through a lot of these sort of young emotions and these challenges. And I mean, none of us came from a perfect family, like nobody, you know, it doesn't really exist. And so, you know, we've all had various challenges, but you're reading your childhood. There was so much. When you read my book, you were like, Mark, it's just like reading like Brother from Another Mother. And I was just like, you know, I'm reading yours and going like, yeah. And we'll touch on, you know, more about that as we go forward. But let's have a, before we sort of jump forward into the music and the 90s rave scene and all that kind of stuff, let's talk about the accident, Jace, because, you know, ultimately the lead up to it, you were clearly in quite an unhappy place, weren't you?
Yeah. Up until probably about 2 or 3 years ago, my story always started from the 3rd of January, 1993. You know, what went wrong on that day of the accident. And I sort of bring in later on during the presentation, I talk about like the year prior to my accident from school. I flunked school a little bit. We'd moved in it when I was 15, so I got no exams. Didn't get to school quite a lot in the last year, like a lot of bunking off. So I left school. I scraped a few O levels. I always wanted to be a songwriter. You know, I had a plan. I was very arty, so moved back to Newark, and lucky enough, I got a job at a songwriting place. Absolutely loved it. We made 1920s replica vehicles, and we did delivery on them. I went through an apprenticeship, and I always say it wasn't the best job in the world. I mean, the only good thing was it was a YTS, and they used to give us £7.50 more per week. So we was like millionaires, you know what I mean? All the other kids were on 25 quid, and we was on £32.50. Like, we was like millionaires. But I just loved the job, you know, going to work every day, never on a day off, just loved it. Then got made redundant in 1992. By this time I was married, a couple of young kids. My girlfriend got herself pregnant when she was 19. Totally irresponsible of her, but there you go. So forced, you know, not forced into marriage, but decided getting married, and it wasn't a great relationship. I mean, we talk about it now, but it wasn't really a relationship. It was like forced together because of circumstances, and it was sort of destined to fail, if I'm totally honest. But 1992, you're trying to survive. You've got kids, you know, got rent to pay and bills to pay, and you're in debt, and there's just really grim times. But I got made redundant, so get more work, and it was a time of recession. So if you want great work, right, you just basically took whatever you could get. But I was very fortunate that one of my friends, he used to work on the power stations doing the outages during the summer. I mean, it's 7 days a week work, sort of 12 hours a day. It's really, really hard work, but really well paid. And he got me a job. And I was only labouring on a job, and it was just like phenomenal money at the time, probably like 5 times more money per week, just loads of money. So but I was away from home 7 days a week. Sam, my son, just been born, so you miss out on home life. You're away from home, so what do? You go to the pub. It's not like today. There's no mobile phone, so you probably make one phone call at night. Then you're out with the lads till late. So it was a really hard existence, but I was earning loads of money. Got finished the season off that. Ended up working on a building site for my father-in-law at the time. My father-in-law at the time had a small roofing company, and again, I don't actually think there was really a job there for me. He just felt obliged. Come on, I'll give him a day's work. So it was crap money. I hated it. It was cold. I mean, I was used to having soft hands being a songwriter. You know, my hands were blistered. It was freezing cold. Get up every day, and it's like I was drinking quite heavily at the time, arguing with the wife at the time, arguing with her all the time. It was a pretty grim existence. And Christmas came round, 92. Just rubbish. We'd not bought no presents for people. We had hardly any money. Arguing all the time. So Christmas has been bad. And then January 3rd, first day back after the Christmas break. And you go back to work that day. I've been to a party the night before, got in late, not come home like I should have done. So I've been out till the early hours, get banged up for work in the morning, hungover, feeling dreadful, crap life, turn up on a building site. So I think my accident was it's just one of the things we talk about how things have to line up. All things have been lining up for a good few weeks, you know what I mean? And
it's a culmination, isn't it? It's a culmination of like loads of those things all lining up together that potentially led to that day, you know? I mean, you know, in the book, you talk about going up the ladder. I've heard you talk more about this, you know, in a little bit more detail. Tell me, please, you know, I mean, did you know you went up the ladder because you had to go back up to get something and then someone wasn't footing the ladder or something? I mean, what?
Yeah, I say on presentations, I mean, my recollection of the day of the accident is very sketchy. A lot of it is in pieced together by what people have told me. Even now, it's like, whether I blocked stuff out, I'm not quite sure, because all I remember was where we was working it wasn't fantastically safe, but by the standards of the day, it was pretty good. There was a secure ladder and edge protection on one edge. But then, as a lot of accidents happen, the rush job, end of shift, could you just? So this job was supposed to take 2 hours. It was getting dark. It was freezing cold. And he said, "Can you get it done by an hour? I really need it doing." So a bit of pressure. I mean, had we been asked to work on safely, who knows? But a bit of pressure had been applied. Got the job done. I come down the ladder. It was being footed at the time. So it was unsecured ladder going up. But coming down, a guy was footing the ladder. Got to the bottom. He walked away. I was down. And then as I got to the bottom rung, go back up to get some tools. And I was going back up the ladder, grumbling about all sorts. And next thing, it slipped. And that's it. I was on the floor. There was no dramatic, I was falling through the air, everything stopped. It was literally, ladder slipped, I'm on the floor. No,
I mean, the bit that I've read in that book, and the bit that people really need to understand, is that moment of in your life where you were laying there cold, you know, and you're like, I can't feel my legs.
Yeah. I can remember being on the floor. I got a small cut on the back of my head, so I got a bit of pain. I'm like, bloody hell! So I'm running. I was really winded, so I'm cursing. The two guys, the guys are looking over from the top of the roof. Are you okay? I'm cursing, going, yeah, buddy, give me a minute. And then obviously I'm winded, so I'm struggling to get my breath. And then as I go to sit up, I thought, hang on a minute, that's not wind. I'm not winded. I literally can't feel my legs. So obviously you start screaming and all the panic sets in. Didn't think for a moment, even not feeling my legs, this was forever. I've done something, you know, get an ambulance. I was trapped between two buildings. So the ambulance finally got there and they couldn't move me because obviously they suspected spinal injury. Straight away, they just go, don't move him. And it was just a normal ambulance. So they're trying to get a paramedics there to move me. But by this time, obviously it was freezing cold anyway. I'm shivering. I'm scared of getting hypothermia. So we just made a decision, we're going to move you.
Yeah.
So get me on board, get me in the ambulance, and we swapped ambulances to get me to Nottingham. And that was it, really. You know, just being in that ambulance thinking, it's going to be all right, you know.
I mean, you even share a little story where one of the doctors came in when you were sitting. Obviously, you're still sitting there, you can't feel your legs or anything. One of the doctors comes in and goes, "Oh, it's just temporary. It's gonna pass. You know, you'll be all right in a few weeks," type thing. It's just gonna be, you know. And you were like, "Oh, well, that's all right then." And then he comes back in later after another scan, and he's like deadpan, like, "You're never gonna walk again." And it's just like, I mean, I'm reading it, Jace, going like, you know, oh,
it literally was. He had no emotion when he told me. It wasn't like, I've got some bad news. Just says, this is it. You got that. He walked out of the room. It was like, but you said I was all right. You know what I mean? Like, but again, you still believe it. It's not right. No, it's going to be all right. I mean, obviously, operations, spinal surgery, put bars in the back, and then transfer to a spinal unit. And you're thinking, oh, hang on a minute, this is getting a bit. This is going to be serious. And I did a podcast yesterday. Actually, it's quite funny that all the doctors give this prognosis. It's the rest of your life. Yet the cleaning lady, she told me she had a feeling I was going to walk again. So who do you think I believed? The doctors were all very experienced, or the cleaning lady, because she had a feeling. So I was convinced, because I told everybody, I'm a cleaning lady, so they're going to be all right.
She's like a genius.
Yeah, because she had a feeling. What she said was, I'm never wrong. So that sealed it. Or she's never wrong.
You know what? You're going to cling on to something. I mean, you know, and mate, I mean, God, it's such a powerful story. It just, you know, and I mean, if we move past that, and I know obviously there was lots, you know, you had to claim compensation. It ripped the family apart. Your wife ends up leaving. You know, the children go away, but then they come back and everything else. I mean, the success story in your personal life is actually that as a family, obviously, you know, your wife's moved on and everything, but with your kids and everything, you're really close now, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, that was it. My kids were everything. Again, I think it was because of my past, having a stepdad and losing my, you know, all what I went through as a kid. I was determined I was not losing my kids. It was just so ingrained in me. It was that focus, and, you know, who knows what we're in for the best, really. But I was so adamant I was having my kids, and that was it. You know, and I brought my kids up by myself. But I wasn't coping. You know, I had a focus, and I think I sort of did things thinking I could cope, and I got them into like a 2-week cycle. Kids, they'd be at mum's, I would go and pub drinking. Just a cycle of this 2 weeks. I could just about go in really extreme highs and lows. You know, daily, just changing in the morning. You got the kids. Next day, the kids would go in, so you'd be out on a Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, down the pub Sunday dinner. You know, just constantly drinking, and then just recovering for a few days. And, you know, often I get the kids to school in the morning, get them up in the morning, give them breakfast, get them to school, I go back to bed till dinner time. Yeah. Virtually able to, you know, because.
Well, you weren't, like you said, I've heard you say before, you weren't coping very well, you know, with the whole thing, and that led you into alcoholism, you know, much of, you know, into addictions, I guess. And of course, you know, we've discussed, you know, like getting into music, of course, and you know, you went to a few 90s raves kind of clubs. You went to a few clubs in Derby, and didn't you? You were telling me about a few nights out, you know, and the vibe that actually was really welcoming to you. But I remember you saying that you were quite anxious, obviously, about being there, particularly with the wheelchair and everything. And you used to get in there early and just be there and just enjoy the whole night and then leave right at the end. But also, apart from obviously the addictions and everything else that went with it, you did feel like that. It did give you a good buzz, didn't it? People like giving you love and making you, you know, feel part of something.
You know, especially from the parents. You know, so I was never into drugs at all. It was just not part of I was a football lad, you know, beer and whatever it was. So for me, it was more the scene, the acceptance. You know, I was even clubs when I used to go in town, like you said, I used to go there before it was open, get out of my wheelchair, sit on a bench, put my wheelchair behind the bar, and then at the end of the night they come and get my chair out. So embarrassed in the chair. So it held so many problems for me. Yeah. I think it just represented everything that got wrong in my life. And if you could pinpoint something, it was a chair. And I had a real bad relationship with it, you know. But when I went to the first rave club in Derby, you know, going somewhere new, my anxiety was all over the place. You know, I'd get drunk before I go, and then obviously getting in there, how we're going to get in. You know, even clubs in town where I lived, if it was full, we'd say, Jason, we're too busy tonight, mate, you can't come in. So that part of anxiety. But when I went to Derby for the very first time, and we got there, a massive queue outside, you know, because it was such a great club, Renaissance, really well followed. People came from all over the UK to it. Massive queues. We got there, and they saw me. Jeff Oakes used to run the door. I think Jeff came to the door one day. He saw me and just built it. I thought he was going to say, you can't come in. You know, I was expecting to be turned away.
Get in it.
Get to the front. He said, who you with? He says, and it says about they can all come in. So there's no worry about not getting in. I'm first in there. And I went in for the very first time, usual, where I'm sitting tonight, where I'm going to put my chair. And the mate said, you can't sit anywhere. You're going to be up all night. So like the anxiety, the feeling, like people come in looking at me, but so much love. People saying, "Wow, great to see you." And like, and even I'm on a podium somewhere dancing. That was the high for me, because you were so welcomed. You just felt like your disability wasn't a disability. Like people were like more or less congratulating you for being out. It's just great to see someone like you out. Well, you're welcome. Blah blah blah. So that was sort of the addiction for me. But again, the lows from that was huge.
Yeah.
And obviously, the addictive side of it wasn't all great. That side was great, but what you was doing to your body, and there's so many extra complications. You've got to be in the wheelchair. These sort of drugs affect your body, and it was only 2 years later that it all went wrong.
So let's come back to that in a sec, but just this little bit, obviously, in the forward of Life Remix, because we talk about, obviously, you came out with your e-colours as yellow blue, although you've got a nice balance of everything, but yellow blue were your sort of predominant ones, and we went through it together, and it was very, very interesting. But Lewis Senior wrote this bit about me, because I was yellow blue. I'm now 1% yellow red, but I'm still pretty much yellow blue. But he says people with these propensities are best described as relating socializers. So this is you and me, Jace. Typically focused on people rather than tasks, having a strong desire to help others, like to be liked, or even better, loved. That's us, isn't it? Emotionally driven, don't like confrontation, struggle to say no for fear of upsetting someone. Actually, several people whose e-colours are yellow-blue describe themselves as party animals. If you knew Mark back in the day, do any of these behaviours described here sound like him? It was fascinating for Lewis to write that about me, but I know that, it's something we'll go back to later, but it's certainly something that's just, it's in your personality. It's kind of like who you are, isn't it? And I don't think you should, you mustn't feel bad about that. You've got to get into that level of appreciation of who you are, because you bring some amazing skills. Every single person does. And I think it's fascinating, Jace, and then, the whole 90s rave thing, it had its highs, clearly. It had its good things that, were just people just being friendly and helping each other. But of course, you touched there where, a couple of years where it all went wrong, just talk a bit more about that, because, you ended up in hospital again, didn't you?
Yeah. Again, because of my anxiety, there's going to see Jeremy Healy at Sheffield, a different club. So straight away, somewhere new. Will I be welcomed at a new, different club? And I decided I wasn't going to go. So I went uptown all day drinking and got in a taxi to come home. And by chance, one of the lads who was going to spot me said, "Jace, you coming tonight? Definitely coming, aren't you?" So, all right, I'll go and get changed. So I went back out and, started feeling really bad. As soon as I got in the club, really, a couple of hours in there, they brought me on the bus. I was hallucinating. They couldn't control me. Dropped me off the hospital. It was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. They were scared what was happening, so they just dropped me at a local hospital. Then my dad took the phone call, sort of 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Your son's in hospital. We haven't got a clue what's wrong with him. Can you try and find out where he's been and what he's done? So my dad just rang around people he knew, and one of my friends just said, "Look, he's taken some stuff," and that was it. And it just went downhill from there. I was in a coma for 17 days, induced coma for 17 days on a ventilator. Mum and Dad told to switch the machine off after 15 days. They said, "Look, he's got brain damage. He's not going to be like his son anymore. We advise you just turn it off." But my dad just said no. Dad sat in bed all the time. Mum was great, and he was living at the hospital. But my dad just sat with me all night, and he says, "No, there's something there. We're not giving up on him." And I came out after 17 days. It was touch and go. They couldn't even bring me around. They were struggling to get me out of the coma. Every time we tried, my heart rate was going through the roof. So he said, we can't even get him out of it. So they finally got me out of the coma, but I was scrambled. My brain was really, really affected. My speech was really slurred. I was on a ventilator for about another week. Just a real grim place. In fact, I went to rehab for longer than I spent when I had my accident.
Really?
About 5 months I was not in rehab for, just trying to function. I came out of hospital not well. I was still it was very similar to a stroke. So I got lost use of my arms properly. I couldn't lift myself. So yeah, it was pretty grim. And I was on a podcast last night. Somebody said, "Was that the turning point?" And I just laughed. Said, "I wish it was," but it wasn't.
Right. I mean, it's amazing. I mean, your videos, particularly your second video that I was talking about in the intro there. I mean, the effect that all of this, I mean, there's Proud to Be Safe video, which if you can find it you can find it on YouTube. Just put in Jason Anker Proud to Be Safe and you'll find it. But that video obviously has Abby and Sam both talking about their take on it and how they're feeling. When Abby cries at the end of that video, which I'm sorry but when Abby cries at the end of that video, I've watched that video 500 times, right? I mean, various different roles in inductions and all sorts of stuff. And I'm literally, every time she cries, I'm like, oh no, I'm going to cry. Like, oh.
Abby never cries.
Wow.
Abby never cries, not especially in public. She'll cry in the bedroom, but she never cries in public, ever. No matter what you say, she will not cry. And it just shows them. I mean, Sam was, you could tell Sam was, he wasn't even going to do it. I picked him up one day. I'm not asking him to do it. He'll say no. I just said, "Sam, come to my house." And he did it. And it's.
So you surprised him?
Yeah, pleasant surprise, yeah. But for me, it just shows the emotion of my accident. It's not about me. And for me, for so long, it was. For me, everything was about me. I was injured. I was in a wheelchair. It was my life being affected. It has took me a long time to really appreciate the impact that my decisions have had on other people. And it goes back to what we know now. It wasn't the chair was a problem, especially with mum and dad. The wheelchair was never the issue. It was my reaction to the wheelchair that was the issue.
Well, I wrote down, when you're talking, if I have, as a top colour yellow, I want to jump in and say something, but I have to have my little pause moment, and I have to do it. But one of the things I wrote down is we spoke about this, been talking for the last week or two, haven't we? And I just wrote gratitude for the chair, because I know that's a position you've got yourself to now, right?
Yeah, I say all the time, the chair used to represent every single thing that gone wrong in my life. Such an easy blame. Every relationship, every down thing in my life was all blamed on the chair, And every time every time I wake up in the morning, the first thing I see is my wheelchair, for impact. But I wake up in a different mindset every morning. I practice gratitude every single day when I wake up. So before I open my eyes, I've done all the gratitude stuff, and then I open my eyes, and there's my wheelchair side of my bed. But to me, that's my mobility. I'm pleased to sleep nowadays. If you want there, I'll be laid in bed all day. So and that's a shift of mindset. Nothing more, nothing greater than a shift of mindset that, that thing has took me places that I've seen things that I'd never would have seen if I'd not had my accident. I've been places, done things. You talk about Buckingham Palace. I've been 3 times now. I went to a garden party.
All right, Jay.
Garden party. We went to the garden party. It was the Rosper 70 years thing. You might have been invited. You might have been there.
No, I didn't. But next year,
it was all security. There's been a terrorist, some attacks or something. So there's high security. Everyone's queuing, and I went with Sean. Sean was a +1 who'd been working. So Sean came along with me, and we got to the gate, and everyone's queuing up, and we got our tickets like the golden ticket, like Willy Wonka. We got our tickets out, and security just went, "These 2 guys, they're coming now."
Brilliant.
And yeah, we was in the roll 10 with 20 other people. It's like the most, and it was a baking hot day, and we're in the roll 10, all air conditioned. The people are outside, like thousands of people, like looking at us. And me and Sean thinking, how the hell does this happen? But knowing what I know now, you make these things happen. Only by doing what you do and pushing things out there, you get these opportunities. And we've been back since. Me and Ali went back for a tour, potentially got some work there, doing some work, and it's just a real, and the only downside I have is like, if I'd been in the place where I am now, how much more would I've enjoyed these experiences? But it is what it is. It's gone. I look back. I did things like even my MBE. I was just like.
So, yes. Before we get onto that, because I'd love to know a bit more about how the MBE came about, mate. Because to go from almost, life support machine being almost switched off to what you've done and how you've achieved it is incredible. Obviously, I was saying about Abby, in the video and everything, but Emma, my wife, is saying it's Jason's dad in the video that chokes her up when she watches that. And I remember your dad gets very emotional, doesn't he? One of the scenes in one of the videos, because he cares so much, and obviously sitting next to you there, and all the way through that horrific hospital experience, beautiful. And what a guy, what a man to look up to and everything. I think it's really beautiful. But yeah, the MBE. So I mean, how does that come about? I mean, I remember one of my friends is a DJ, Norman J, and Norman J MBE, and he tells a story where someone actually rings him up. And he thinks they're on the wind up. He's like, he thinks they're from the, it's one of his mates saying it's from Downing Street or from and he's like, shut up, So, I mean, how did it happen?
Well, pretty similar, really. Slightly different, pretty similar. That stage, I was working ridiculous. I'd go away on a Sunday, get back on a Friday. When I first started, it was really tough. Doing sort of 4 sessions a day. I worked so hard. It was just ridiculous. I was always knackered, and I got back in on a Friday night, switch the light on, pile the mail, so make a cup of tea.
But it gave you a bit of purpose, right? At a time when you probably needed it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But I got a letter, so there's a letter, all stamped up officially, and straight away I thought, jury service, really? I'm so knackered, I can't do this. This is the worst thing ever. So ripped the letter open, thinking, what the hell's going on here? And then sort of read it, thinking, what, someone's nominated me for an MBE. That's amazing. That's amazing. And sort of later on, just revisit the letter and beat up again to have a good read through it and go, no, you've got one. You've been awarded an MBE, but you've sworn secrecy. Can't tell anybody. Not a soul. Not a soul you can tell. You can't tell your family. You can't tell anybody. Yeah, and that was sort of October. So I'm thinking, but
3 months before it comes out in January. Comes out in January.
So. Well, it says nobody. I'm thinking, well, obviously you can tell your mum and dad. So I took the letter around to my dad's, gave my dad the letter, and then I got an email saying, do not tell your family members, do not tell anybody. So I had to go around to my dad's and do this long-winded thing about getting this letter back. And then it broke about a week before Christmas. So it was in the New Year's honours. So you find about October time.
Yeah.
And then the press get here about a week before. They come around. They're all sworn secrecy. So I had to let my dad sort of into the thing a little bit. But again, I was just obviously you're humbled to receive something like that. Don't get me wrong, but what did it mean to me? I mean, I was made up from my parents. Just they were so proud. You know what I mean? For them, it was just amazing.
But what a turnaround for them to go from that what you just told for them to that's amazing for them as well.
And I think that's what I felt. All what I've done to them, because. It literally has ruined their lives. Again, not my accident. If I'd have dealt with it better, they wouldn't be in the place.
Yeah, okay. It's like, I mean, the thing about it is, Jason, is you're similar age to me, around 50 and whatever. We've got plenty of years left on this planet. There's lots of things that we can do to change. You've been doing it for years in a positive way. You're going to continue to do it. I know. I've got a couple of comments here as well. So Emma says, "What did Prince Charles say to you when you presented the MBE? Is there any special words from Prince Charles?" Or
well, honestly, whether you're a royalist or not, Prince Charles, there was, I think, about 150 people had gone through, and he spoke to everybody who went up. And I was like really trying to remember all the etiquette things we've been trained, nodding your heads at the right time. So I was really nervous. And he presented it. He said, "How was it at Ross Hythe?" And I thought, how do you know I've been on the air? So he actually, there's no one there, but yeah, he knew my background, that I'd worked on the aircraft carriers, which I thought was absolutely insane. So yeah, it was just, it's one of the moments I can remember it. I can remember what happened. I got on film, so it was all filmed, so you got a bit of a film about it. But yeah, it was just a surreal time. Prince Charles is talking to you about what you've done in your work, and you're trying to remember all the
etiquette and keep trying to be cool.
Honestly, bow your head going towards him. As I got to him, I thought, I've not bowed my head. So I was like switched off straight away, thinking, oh my God, I've got it wrong. I've got it all wrong. But yeah, just the way he speaks to people, every person, he spoke to every single person. So yeah, it was just fabulous. Then we all went to the Savoy afterwards, me, Abby and my dad. I had a bit slap-up meal with champagne at the Savoy. Just the whole thing was just, and my dad was so happy. It was just, Mum, she wasn't well enough to come. Mum suffers a little bit, so Mum wasn't well enough to come for the day. But my dad,
Your dad was over the moon, mate. I've got another message here, and this is someone I've been wanting to speak to for a long time. This is your friend Sean.
Oh, yeah.
Your friend Sean here says Garden Park the Palace was a brilliant day and another lifelong memory I've had with Jace. Now, I've seen Sean speak with you on stages. I've seen him share his part of the story. I've also watched the video, as I've said before, in every induction I've ever done for the last 5, 6, 7 years, however long it was. And Sean, I just want you to know that your story about keeping Jason's football boots in your bag for 5 years or 4 or 5 years or whatever until after his accident, that was the other moment that I never forgot. I was like, just the fact that you just kept thinking, well, it's Jace, be all right, that kind of stuff. And those football beats, I've always remembered that story as well. So, but Sean, I know Sean's travelled with you a lot and has been around us, has supported you in the talks as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, Sean's, he had his own problems growing up. He had attempted suicide when he was 17. So I've helped Sean now develop his own story, because again, what Sean did, what most people presume is mental health, that you go into a bit of a crisis. And Sean had an episode at 17, but he used comedy as a defense mechanism. So he laughed and joked all his life, and people expect, oh, Sean's okay, he's always laughing and joking. And yet he was going through a massive traumatic time himself.
Wearing a mask of it, yeah. If Sean, if you're watching, I'd love to send you a copy of my book, Life Remix, Sean. I think you might enjoy it. I'd love to share it with you, because what Sean's work and supporting you as a friend and going through everything, with you, particularly in the last few years that I've seen, I think it's beautiful, and I think it's so nice. We need people around us to help us. That's the mental health agenda, is about all of us helping and supporting each other, right?
Absolutely. I'll big Sean up a little bit, so I gave him a bit of a dog's life working for me. But yeah, I don't know where I'd be without Sean helping me, driving me all over, and he does support me really well. But yeah, that's it. And I'll never mention it ever again. So that's the best it gets for sure.
You've picked him up. So yeah, obviously, the whole thing. Look, bless him. Look, here he goes. He says, "Thanks, Mark." There you go. So inbox me your address, Sean. I'm going to the post office in the morning. I'd love to send you a book. Now he's laughing at you, Joe. So there you go. But yeah, big up, Sean, mate, because you're a top fella, mate. I love your vibe. So look, obviously, we've touched on the accident. We've touched on the impact on your health and well-being and everything else that's gone around it. What was the turning point? Because obviously, if that guy asked you on that podcast yesterday, was it the turning point? Had you rock bottomed out when you were, almost switched off on a life support machine? What happened after that then? So you had the rehab.
Yeah, I didn't cope. I found a way of coping. I got into a disabled water skiing, again, a hobby. But everyone at the ski place where I went to was all big drinkers. So I didn't really escape the drinking side of it. I just coped for 16 years, just found a way of coping. And because I'd been through so much, and I could see I'd affected people so much, my way of coping, I thought, well, I don't deserve any more, because I've got to cope for everybody else. So it was all about looking after the kids and, appearing okay. But such a binge drink, it was unbelievable. I drank to get drunk. I didn't drink in the house when the kids were there. But when the kids went to the mums, especially as they grow up, they saw a lot more, because obviously when they was little, I was protecting them. But as they grow up, the amount of time Sam's brought me home from places, because his dad's drunk, he'll take dad home again because he's drunk, and
But I think you were probably numbing the pain of the
Without a doubt, it was purely to numb the pain, and I think Sam was a bit shocked that I'm speaking about all this now, but I have been speaking on my presentations for quite a while now, because it's such a part of the story that didn't know how to cope, didn't know how to speak to, was aware that most of the problems was caused by myself. So who am I to speak up to? What help can I get? Who can I ask for help? Because I've caused most of this myself. So think of other people. Again, going back to what you said about think about other people for yourself. It was like, I'll just live like this the rest of my life, and hopefully other people will be better around me.
So were you? When did the public speaking start? Because there's a little story behind that as well, about how that actually came about.
Exactly. I mean, I got the conversation after 14 years. Didn't help at all. I used to just go on holidays, spend more money, just didn't change anything. And then drunk in a pub, I was drunk somewhere, and somebody who I knew just gave me this business card and said, look, this guy is looking for a speaker. And that was much of the story, really, ringing this number up. And I woke up the next day, as you do, searching through your change, trying to figure out how much you spent the night before. And there's this sort of business card. And I do still remember, but I sort of vaguely remember this conversation about this guy. Anyway, curiosity, I thought, wait, it took about 2 weeks of thinking this, but I thought, yeah, I'll ring him up. What have I got to lose? So I rung this guy up, and he said, look, I do behavioural safety. His name was Dan Terry. And part of my presentations, I normally show a video, but what I'd really like to is do a live talk in the room. So I ran through the story and the accident. He said, yeah, your accident. Yeah, I've heard that. What else did you do? It was more interesting. In fact, my wife left me. I turned to drugs and the effect on my family. He says, that is what makes change. That's what makes people, if they're going to change the way they work, it's listen to how your family and friends are affected. So he took me somewhere to see what he did. And I sat at the back of the room thinking, not a chance. There's no way on this earth that I'm going to sit in front of people and share my story. And he rang me after about 2 or 3 weeks saying, what do you think? I said, I'm in Tenerife. I ain't doing it. I've gone back to Tenerife for a couple of months. There's no chance, mate. It's just not for me. And fair play to Dan. He waited 2 or 3 months later and ran me back up and said, look, what you've told me of your story, you have to share it with other people, without a doubt. And I can remember going somewhere, and by this time the story was about 15 minutes long, mainly about the accident. And I'd gone somewhere, and there was a guy in the audience right in the front row, decided he wasn't listening, not sat at the back not listening, right in front of me, arms crossed, head down, twiddling. I don't want to listen to this. And I don't know. To this day, I don't know why, but I just thought, right. And I told him everything. Everything. From leg bags to how you go to the toilet, to sex, to just everything. And at the end of the day, fair play to the guy. He's got up, walked across to me, and he just shook my hand.
Nice.
And he said, I get it.
Yeah.
And I honestly think in that moment, that's why I went, I get it. This is not about me. It's not. From that, before that, it was all about me. But my life, me, and from that, it wasn't. It was about how would you cope if this happened to you? It changed the way I presented it, and everybody said it just changed everything. I think, I'd have probably made a career as a speaker, but what sort of speaker would I have made? Because it was all about me. They'd be like, feel sorry for me. And I changed. I changed my language, and I think that was probably the start of the turning point. Again, alcohol was still in the background because I was, and then the more you get, and I allude to your book, the more you have, people presume, well, he's doing well, he's happy, he's got money, he's got a house, he's got a car. Oh, look at his life, he's brilliant. And in a way, it makes your personal life even worse because you like putting on a front all the time, and you allude to it, like it's tiring. I mean, I was shattered all of the time. I was so tired because you put them up front all the time to appear that you're coping, you're happy, and everything's great, and you're spending the money, and you go on the holidays, and it's like, oh, but internally, I just wasn't getting it.
I think in the end, you can't wear that mask forever. You just can't. It just doesn't work. I mean, I wore a mask for many years, and I had my own addictions and everything else in the music industry and everything I did for 20 years and everything. But one of the things I wrote down here earlier, and I've actually just we've come back round to it, is, once you take the focus off yourself, once you take the focus off yourself and your own ego, from my perspective, certainly as a DJ, aren't I great? As soon as I took all that focus off myself, and for me, it took my collapse and incurable disease, bankruptcy. For you, it took your accident, clearly, and then the aftermath of your accident for you to work through it over quite a long period of time, really. But once you finally get to that point where you take the focus off you, all of a sudden, life can actually be really beautiful again when you start giving that positive energy to other people, right?
Yeah, obviously, I started on this sort of trying to look after myself, educate myself a little bit more about what's possible. It was actually Dan Terry who actually got me into The Secret. He just said, he says, I think you're ready to listen to this. And I was like, what do you mean I'm ready? He said, you are. You start to take some positive change. You start to create these things in your own life. And it did. Things just started to move so fast. Everything was just a success, and everything was working. I was so thinking to myself, I was so happy.
When did you first see The Secret, Jace?
About 2008, 2009. Dan got about 6 months after working with Dan.
Okay.
He started building me up, my confidence, so it didn't sort of bring it out straight away. And I said to him after I watched it for the very first time, I was both working away somewhere, and he said, "Go to your room and watch this." And when I watched it, he called me and said, "What do you think?" I said, "So watch it again then." So I had to watch it twice. So I was thinking, and yeah, I got it more the second time, but I did say to him afterwards, says, "Look, I'm being totally straight with you. If you'd have showed me that 1 month ago, I'd have laughed. I'd have said, what a load of crap that is." I would have been right, because it is what it is. If you believe it, you believe it. And if you don't believe it, it's right. So, and from that, he sort of started, make some plans, start making these boards, making some conscious place where you want your life to go. What is it you want in life? So from that, he was the key to the start of changing me. He was working also with a guy called Matt Terry. We weren't related, but he was on the same vein. Make the most of the opportunities. You've been dealt a bad card, and that's what's happened. But you can't change that. All you can change is what's happening in your future. So
all you can change is this present moment, and then how you're responding. I mean,
I suppose I didn't really get into the now till a bit later. So it was all about focusing on what could achieve. So that was a great turning point in my life. But again, still sort of a bit unfulfilled with stuff.
Well, you were, I mean, bless you, you were so lovely when obviously I sent you the book, and then I showed you the Bob Proctor endorsement video and stuff like that. And you just sent me this message back going like, Mark, that's just like, it's like blowing my mind. It's like, Bob Proctor, like, endorsing Life Remixed and stuff like that. And of course, he's on the back of the book and he's endorsed it. And he sent that video and everything. It's just, I mean, that's powerful stuff, and actually, for me personally, to be endorsed by a guy, I saw The Secret in 2006. And honestly, I straight up, honestly, from the moment I heard your story and then saw you speak, I just knew that there was a lot of synergy between us. I didn't know we were both yellow blues in e-colors, for instance. I didn't know your full story. I didn't know lots of things, but I just had this vibe about you and what you were doing, your mission, and what you would continue to do. Obviously, your mission to reach out to other people and let them hear your story, but for the ultimate aim of them having a good day at work and going home to their families and not having to go through, the sort of, if you want to call it the river of shit or whatever that you've had to kind of like get through, like the Shawshank Redemption, it's kind of like, just trying to work out your way in the world, and it taking 20 years or more, I mean, so I knew from the moment I was like, this is amazing. So for me to understand that you actually watched The Secret only 2 or 3 years after me, and like, and we're here now, and obviously you're going to attend my e-colors awareness course, you're going to attend my 5 days to remix your life course, you're on some Tony Robbins courses at the moment, right? You're doing some stuff there as well, right?
Yeah, but I'm doing that online, the full immersion thing in June. So I'm doing loads of this stuff, like getting ready to go on there, because it's just that next phase, isn't it? I'm looking for that next thing now, and I know it's there. So instead of just sitting around waiting for things to happen, put some effort into life.
Well, you and I are going to be talking a lot more after this interview and beyond. And we're getting some lovely comments. So a good colleague of mine, a great friend, Ian Collins, saying such a powerful message. Thank you for sharing. And you'll meet Ian in due course. He's a fantastic guy, and also in e-colors, Equilibria coach. He's a top fella. And a friend of mine, Marcus in Ireland, said just finished watching The Secret before we got talking. He's definitely going to watch it again. Yes. Do go and watch it again, and understand that we are what we think about. There is a law of attraction. There is a law of vibration, and these things, whether you believe them or not, are actually happening, right? So, I think if you tune into it, the quicker you tune into it, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Good on you. And so, a little bit on the e-colors, of course. So, you did your yellow boot, you did your personal diversity indicator, and it came out as yellow blue. And we read through some of the report and everything. I mean, what did you think about that?
Yeah, spooky. Obviously, I get a lot of things pushed at me, thinking, I can do this. I just thought, here we go, I'll get a try. And I wanted it not to be right. It's like I wanted something to be wrong in it. And even when I was going through it, thinking if only I said something else, I might have been green. But I read all things. It wasn't just one or two. You know how I feel about some stuff. What is it? Is it just cleverly marketed? Everything fits in. But someone was so not me. So if it had been a different colour, I said, no, Mark, that's not me. I'm not that one. But it was just everything we went through was, what bits do you agree with? I said, it's all, everything. There's nothing I didn't agree with. It was just like the whole lot was spot on. So yeah, and again, the fact that it's not billed as the answer to everything. It's a tool to give you the awareness. You know, sort of things. You might be more a slightly different colour some days, but that general awareness of where you are, I can't see what anyone can see negative in that whatsoever, because it gives you at least an understanding of maybe. So now I do it all the time. That's my pause button, because I dive in all the time. You know what I'm like, without my conversations, talking over each other. It's pretty ridiculous sometimes. I don't understand what we're saying. So now when you're talking, I just press my wrist, and that literally is my pause. I mean, everybody I say, my daughter Abby's saying it all the time to me, Dad, you cut people off. Sam goes ballistic. He says, Dad, you're doing it again. You jumped in, you took over conversation. So for me to pause, you know, if I got nothing else out of this, the fact I could be on site now and just press my wrist, I know, don't speak, listen, and listen to what people are saying to you. So they're waiting. Don't listen to what they say. Just wait for a break in the conversation so you can get rambling again. And that's been a massive problem of mine. So just if you concentrate on that one thing, has that changed my life? Massively. Is that going to, when I go on meetings? Massively. So instead of thinking, right, speak, ramble on like I do best of times, to have that pause, just calm down for a moment. And if you're talking, pause yourself. If you haven't finished talking, just pause yourself for a moment, catch your breath, and start again. You know, so yeah, you know, it's just it is what it is, and it proves, you know, it just proves it's got such a value.
Well, that's the point. I mean, if you think about it, you know, they've canvassed thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people for the e-colors, you know, across high-risk industries, you know, across the world. And so they've broken it down to 12 different personality types, you know. And you and I and a good friend of mine, Diana, as well, a coaching client and a good friend who's writing an amazing book as well. She's also yellow blue, and she's just left a lovely comment. Let's just put that up as well. She says, I'm so moved and inspired by your will and determination to move from surviving to thriving. Your story is helping so many people and will for many years to come. Thank you, Jason, for sharing such an honest way. Beautiful. Diana's a beautiful soul. And also yellow blue, very, very similar to us as well in that way. You know, but if you go through all the tendencies, there's so much of it. I mean, the first time I read my e-colors when I was yellow blue, it said, you may be musically orientated. Well, I'm not being funny, but I've just been a DJ for 20 years. You know what I mean? I'm like, right, okay. And then the next thing he said, you might like parties. Oh, no, you will like parties. I was like, of course I like parties. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah, and I think what really cemented the whole thing was when Abby did it, because Abby's was it couldn't have been. It was just so good, because hers was predominantly
blue,
green, wasn't she?
She was 40% blue, wasn't she? Yeah,
massively. But that sums Abby up all the time. It's spot on. You know, it's not similar. It was a personality spot on.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's a wonderful tool, and it's something that obviously I'm working with Lewis and Ian and Emma, my wife, and everything else. And we're talking to schools, we're talking to addiction centres, we're talking to so many different people, construction companies. You know, one of our dreams is to be able to move this further out, and so that self-awareness. You know, because the yellow-blue tendency, especially, we have a tendency to jump in and interrupt, as you say, in meetings, but we also have a tendency to jump in to try and help other people. We think we're helping, and on a construction site, sometimes that can be a potential risk. I mean, this came from oil rigs, a lot of it, and it came from oil rigs originally because that's where Lewis was. He was the health and safety manager for Transocean worldwide, all the biggest rig operator on the planet. Yellow blues, it came out when first time I read it bear in mind, I was like a DJ coming out of music and looking for something new to kind of get into. And it said, you might, if you jump in to help someone else, you might get seriously hurt or killed. And I was like, what? But the point was that that really got me, because I was like, because I do that. I can put myself at risk sometimes by jumping in to help other people. And I think, again, pause, hold on, do they really need me to jump in? Can I wait for a second? It can change your whole behavior if you take it on board and then use it in the right way, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good on you, mate. And I really appreciate your feedback on that as well, because Emma says she's a green blue, so yeah, spot on. It's spot on for her as well. And Diana's saying yellow blue, yeah, exactly. So we all understand what we're talking about here, and it's a powerful thing. But look, let's get back to where you are. I mean, obviously, COVID has been a strange old time. What you've been doing for the last 12 months. I mean, you've been doing some online training, of course, but I mean, it's changed everything, hasn't it?
Yeah, change everything. First 2 weeks of your diary just disappearing in front of your eyes. It was like, what are we going to do? But let's find what we're going to do. Abby, my granddaughter, and her husband moved into my house. So I was like, so I had my granddaughter here for the first lockdown, just magical for months. Just every day waking up by my granddaughter, just fantastic. I loved it, and I think I needed a break. But because of work, you don't break, because it's your business. People book a day and you go and do it. I first started used to have all December off and January. I had 2 months off, to go to Tenerife for a month and have some time off. Well, that disappeared. I'd back to work 1st of January, 2nd of January. You're back out working again. So I was physically exhausted. I had a health scare in 2016. And they put down to exhaustion, basically. It says you need to slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
I did for a bit, and then you're back out, you just go back to it. So yeah, for me, I've really enjoyed the time off. Like, we're doing some online stuff now. I've got a studio, so we can do some online stuff. Got all the gear going really well. Doing stuff abroad, so it's open, more doors open up. So I've really use the opportunity to really look at what we do. I mean, I can't wait to get out doing live stuff again, because that's
absolutely. I think we're all looking forward to that, especially as trainers and coaches and everything else, right? Couple of other quick messages, Jace. So a friend of mine, Andy, just said, I've heard you talk about e-colours a lot, but those words he's talking about from you, Jace, just really caught my attention. So that's really important. And if you want to join my next e-colours awareness session, just give me a shout, and I'm doing it on Saturday the 10th of April. Hopefully Jason and Abby will both join us as well, which would be amazing. And Marcus asking, what is the e-colours? I'll come back to you on that, mate. But it's certainly something that's really, really interesting, and I think you'll enjoy it. But yeah, we want to get back out on the live stuff as well. But I think because you've been doing stuff from some training for Amazon online as well, right? So that's something that you can continue to do. I know when I start to do live events, I'll still have a stream available, so I'll still stream the event worldwide while I've still got some people in the room and working like that, because it's just opened up. It's opened up the door to that as well, right?
Absolutely. And we got a client, UK based and Europe based, but we have a facility in Houston, Texas, with mainly Mexicans working there. And we've just found out Zoom do translations for you. You can do a translated version. So it's just opened up doors that we never thought we'd have done before. So, but I'm just desperate to get back out traveling again, back out working. So yeah, so basically going back to the lockdown for me, we weren't affected. Any family members have been affected by it. A couple of family members caught it, but no one's been seriously hurt by it. So for us as a family, we haven't. I've just had a great year off work. It's just been.
Yeah, I think in every crisis there is an opportunity, and if the opportunity for you was to have a break, have a breather, and then come back again stronger, then that's a great thing.
Yeah, and what it's also given me and Sean's been practicing like mad. It's given me a time to go back over my story and really choose different parts, because I didn't normally have the time to rewrite my story, so I was just always delivering. So when do you rewrite stuff? So I'm speaking about things I've never spoke about before.
Good for you.
Just being different elements in it. But now the story ends on a positive note. It's all about my turnaround. As much
I want to come on to that. I want to come on to that for a big finish, because I think it's beautiful what you've done, mate. It's beautiful, right? But just to cover one quick thing there as well, you mentioned about Houston, Texas. So the e-colors and Equilibria, they're huge with Chevron, which is based obviously in the States and goes worldwide on rigs and across the world in oil and gas. But they also did the Houston Super Bowl a couple of years ago. They trained like the London Olympics. They did the e-colors for something like 10,000 people for all the volunteers for the Houston Super Bowl, and it's huge in America. The e-colors thing is massive, and that's why it's such a great thing, I think, here in the UK for us to be working with these guys and actually rolling it out. So all power to us for that, right? And for you as well, Jace, for your feedback. It's wonderful. So let's talk about the turnaround. Let's talk about the success. Let's talk about the positives that you've taken from this entire journey. Because there is a lot to be thankful for, isn't there? There's a lot to be grateful for, and there's a lot of positives that you take out into the world now.
Yeah. I felt that my story had to change. This safety story I got, built my business around. I sort of started to change it, bring a lot of the well-being stuff into it. And I was not advised, but just a quiet word in here from certain people in the industry saying, Jace, you're making the wrong decision. Do not change. Your story is great. But I set myself up. No, I want to do this. It felt the right thing to do. Tell them about the story, but try and pick people up, talk about my mental health, mental well-being issues, and how I overcame it by doing some simple things in my life. I thought it was really important to share. And like I say, not a lot of criticism, but people just made rumblings. Jace, you don't. This is not your area. Don't go into this. But I really felt there was a connection between safety and well-being. And then obviously, Dr. Tim Marsh, he's been a confidant of mine for years. Someone I could turn to for advice. He was always willing to give me a hand. Tim, come to me talk somewhere, be on a video. Yeah, of course, we'll, mate, whatever you want. So I've always kept in touch with Tim, and it was I've gone through. I got myself into a relationship. It hadn't worked out. I've been working away, and I got an arranged meeting with Tim on a Friday in Manchester. He turned up. So, how you doing, Jace? How's the girlfriend? So she's left me, and he just looked at me and he just said, "Are you all right?" I went, "Yeah." He went, "Yeah, you are." And I thought, but if he tells me I'm all right. So it sort of anchored where this belief that well-being and how you feel and how you set yourself every day can change the way you are. Because I'd struggled for years. Now, alcohol had always been my crutch to turn to, and I always say, as a relationship ended, the best thing about it was she convinced me to stop drinking so heavily. Good. So, I always said that was a great point. So when people say you weren't upset when she left, I said, well, I thought it was really resilient because of all these new learnings, but it's quite a brand new revelation to me. You'll probably like this one because I've not actually told you that when she left and I wasn't upset, I thought I'd been really resilient. I was like, whoa, I've really cracked it now, this resilience stuff, I know what I'm doing. But I've actually thought about it now. I thought I'd already decided when we got with it wasn't going to last. Because that negative thoughts pattern I had, so I'd set myself up to fail because I'd already made the connection that, yeah, I'm with someone, but it's not going to last. She's not going to last on the wheelchair. So, in a way, I'd set myself up to fail.
Yeah, because you created that. That's what you created.
So it's all that. You keep. It might be something you saying but it's just this sort of realization. Hang on a minute, Chase. You sabotage your own relationship there because you'd already convinced yourself it wasn't going to work, and guess what? It didn't. So,
well, you were right. You proved yourself right.
Proved yourself right goes back to what I say. It works whether you believe it or not. So, but what the biggest part of the story now is because we talk about my health and well-being, the simple little things I've done. For years I was looking for this big magical thing that was going to turn my life around, and it never appeared. But since I've done these little things, little changes every day, wake up with gratitude every day. Before I open my eyes, I lay there in my bed, I just think about my granddaughter, I think of her straight away, and it doesn't matter how I've slept, what's going on. I just think of my granddaughter, and that smile comes on my face in the morning, and that's before I even open my eyes. And I think you can't wake up better than that in the morning with a smile on your face. I always say I give myself a little 10 minutes in the morning, a bit of me time. But when I'm presenting, I always say to the young guys, I think your understanding a bit of me time might be a little bit different from mine.
I mean? I've I've got a couple of things here for you, right? I've got a couple of things for you. So yeah, the whole self-sabotage thing, I think, is something that's a really interesting discussion. I would say about the breakup of the relationship at that time was that every single person that comes into our lives has a message for us. And we have to make sure we're listening. So some people might just come in for a little while. Some people might come in for a lifetime. Yeah. But, you know, at the end of the day, you know, everyone has a message and you have to make sure each time that you're listening. And if that was your message from that relationship, which is cut down on the alcohol, calm down a little bit there, and perhaps go into the next one with a more positive outlook, then you've learned something, haven't you?
You know, other people in the family might have a different viewpoint to me, but I'm so grateful for that relationship. It's changed me so much. And without that relationship, I would have still been going to the pub every weekend, still doing the same things. It changed me. You know, and I say all the time, people say to me, which is quite funny, people ask me the question, you look really well, Jace. You look really well. You look really happy. What have you done? And I start to tell them about the well-being. No, not all that rubbish. Tell me what you've done. So they still thinking this is a big thing. It's not. I mean, it's like we're off at the minute. I've got into a cold shower in the morning. It's just tracks. Abby and Sam just laugh at me constantly. What are you doing now, Dad? But honestly, I get out of bed in the morning, straight for a cold shower. You're quite like Rocky. It's like the most amazing feeling in the world. I've been in a shower for 2 minutes on freezing cold water. But
do you know Danny Rampling? You know Danny Rampling, who's written the part one of the forward of the book. Obviously, quite a well, you know, one of the founders of house music in the UK. Danny has got into that cold water swimming, that kind of like Wim Hof method. Like he's in the English Channel every morning. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing?
Fair play. Ice baths is the next one I'm going to try. But yeah, I mean, going back to Danny Rampling, one of the early dudes we used to follow, Sasha, John Digweed, and you know, that was people we followed at the time, the pioneers that it all kicked off.
Well, I love the fact that Life Remixed and my memories of it all resonated with you so much as well. It's beautiful, mate. Here, I've got a question here from Emma, and I think it's an important one. I want to share it with you, right? So let's. Well, before I do that, actually, just one other thing I've written down here. We got a puppy at the weekend, and I have the same look on my face with this puppy about like you probably have with your granddaughter, which is like if you're feeling a bit like anything, you know what I mean? You just look at the puppy and you go, oh, yeah, it's all good. Exactly. So look, Emma says, look at this. This is an important one, I think, Chase. I've got younger cousins who will jump up ladders and onto roofs without a thought about their own safety. I guess as young lads, they think they are indestructible. Did you feel that way when you were younger? And what would you say to my young cousins now? Well, that's quite a poignant one, but I mean, you know.
It's a great one. I mean, yeah, I was 24, Emma, you know, when I had my accident. Yeah, it's nothing happened to you. You're young, you're brave, you do all these things. Watch the video. The Proud Safe video, we made it for free. We put it out on YouTube. So get and sit down and watch that. You know, it just shows the impact that accidents actually have. So it's not just about them. But unfortunately for youngsters, their belief is it's never going to happen to them. We was all young. We all did those things. And you just, you know, so yeah, sit down and show the video. Even, you know, it's the impact it has on family. I mean, the clip of my dad crying, as Mark said before, when we filmed the first film, my dad, it was the first thing my dad did. And he edited it slightly differently. My dad cried. We asked him one question. He burst out crying. That was 70 years after my accident. Just the emotion of being asked the question, how was you affected by Jason's accident? My dad just cried. So, yeah, try and get that they understand that their actions have then potential consequences. You know? Yeah,
and they have young families as well. You know, they have young families, and it's like, you know, it's not just them, is it? It's not just them. You know, they're not indestructible. And if it could be one slip, it could be one, you know, accident, incident, near miss, a problem. You know, it could be anything that affects them and other people. You know, and yeah, I mean, mate, your story has got so much power behind it, Jace, and. You know, I'm really excited for us to think about working together and things we might be able to do together in the future, because I think there's so much synergy between us, as we've discovered even in the last month since we've been sharing books and talking to one another. And I you know, like I said to you, you've affected my life in the last 10 years in a really positive way. You know, and I want you to know that I personally am really grateful to you for reaching out and for giving all those talks at Heathrow and all these other, you know, places where you've been, because I've seen the effect, you know, I've seen the effect on groups of men generally working in just playing them the video and watching them respond to what they see. I'd say a 99% success rate of people just going like, right, I got to think about this in a different way. And so, it's, but what I love about your story, Jason, what I love about the well-being piece and everything else is that now you're talking about simple changes in positive impact on well-being, and, people saying to you, oh, that's not your field and don't go into it and stuff like that. I understand why they're trying to say it to you, but that's not for me. That's a negative mindset. You don't need it, because we all change. We all evolve. We all grow. Every human being who's healthy mentally has a way of wanting to grow and move forward and do something. Some of us go slowly, some of us go really quick. But the bottom line is that we can't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, because in the end, it just becomes like monotony, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, going back to Tim, it was Tim that really pushed me. He said, Jay, your story's great, but think about the impact you could have by talking about the positives.
Yeah.
Even after, but it's time to tell me, yeah, I mean, Tim's been instrumental in me changing this story. So like, I want you on stage to talk about the positives. I want you to inspire people to, because safety is one small aspect, but if you get people happier, they tend to work safer anyway. So instead of trying to stop them working safely, feeling miserable, why don't you cheer people up? Because if people in that mindset, they won't switch off the wrong button, or won't turn off Heathrow, or by pressing the wrong button. You know what I mean?
I've got an interesting thing about that. I got taught this a while ago when I was going through my sort of changes and understanding how I'd manifested an incurable disease and bankruptcy and all this other like crazy crap that I'd come up with in my younger life. And it was a quote from someone or other, I can't remember right now, but it said something to the effect of, people won't necessarily remember what you said, but they will definitely remember how you make them feel. Absolutely. So right, isn't it? So all I do now is I just make people feel as good as I possibly can, and they seem to remember me and like it. That's nice, right? So you're taking the same message out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. It's like I've been reborn presenting. I just love doing it now. It's not like we go get another talk. I just love it. I love seeing the change in people. When you connect with so many more people. People come up to you and like, not the one or twos normally telling a story about an accident, or literally 5, 6, 7, 10 people staying behind talking about how their lives are not so great at the moment. You've inspired them to go home, and so yeah, it's phenomenal. And I think that what do we do it for? I don't do it for praise. I'm not into getting feedback from people saying, "Oh, great presentation." But when someone says, I had a message from somebody, she was I'd struggled with drink for 20 odd years and been sober 300-400 days. But she had a stressful week. It was a birthday. She planned to go and drink a couple of bottles of wine. And she said, after your presentation, she said, I didn't do it. I sat down with my son, 8-year-old son, my husband. We had a quiet family meal together. She says, next day, I'm sat at the table. I'm not hungover at work. She says, thank you so much. And for me, that's probably the best bit of feedback I've ever had from a conversation, thinking, wow, I actually changed somebody's life at home. Not just working safe on a site. This is people thinking about what they're doing in their home place. It was like truly the most humbling bit of feedback I've ever had from anybody.
One of the things I would say, Jace, is that what you're talking about for me, and I heard it described this way recently by another coach in America, is light bulb moments. Like, when you're delivering a speech and you see other people have light bulb moments, and then you're inspiring them to change a behavior, however you use it. I'm using my story, you're using your story, but however you reach people and you can actually share a story and go, here, listen to this. And someone will go, yeah, okay. And that's what I've tried to do with Life Remixed, is just fill it full of stuff that people can apply to their own lives and just go, yeah, I get it. And I can change it. I can do this in a different way. And it's a bit on relationships. There's all sorts of stuff in there. But what you're doing is the same. You're inspiring change. You're inspiring people's changing behavior and stuff like that. And what I would say as well, getting loads of beautiful comments coming in. And I want to keep sharing them with you, Jace, because they're so cool. Powerful videos, says Diana. Andy's just saying thank you for the talk, gents, and all power to you both. And Andy, I know he's got a page called Inspire and Be Inspired now, and he's getting buzzed up and about helping other people as well, which is amazing. Emma's sharing the Proud to Be Safe video in the chat. Richard is just saying, I'm really enjoying your bookmark, and thanks for signing it for me. It's my pleasure, Richard. And I need Amazon reviews. I have to be honest, I'm going to put my hand up. We've got 20, 21, 22 reviews. We need 100 to start getting noticed on Amazon, like properly noticed. So please, everyone, Jace, give me an Amazon review, please. Yeah.
Chapter 7. I'm not the fastest reader in the world, so I do apologize. I'm chapter 7, which is great. It's good for me to read that much in one go.
Well, that's amazing. And I have to share as well, because I think it's quite funny. You've got a little WhatsApp group, haven't you, in your family? And you started talking about me all excited, and all your family started taking the piss out of you. What did they say?
Friend.
Got a new friend.
Jealousy marks, all it is, mate. Just jealousy.
Oh, it's amazing, mate. It's absolutely amazing. There's loads of people commenting, Jay. It's so good, mate, honestly. And we've been here for nearly 90 minutes, and we knew we would be, didn't we? But obviously, you've got the Anker and Marsh thing. I mean, Tim Marsh, like you mentioned, is an inspirational speaker, a fantastic guy, very, very knowledgeable. So you've got a consultancy and thing you're working with. Sorry, hang on. Wait a minute. Friend, Facebook friend. Yeah, people taking the piss out of us now, Jay. Well, I don't care. Do you? No, it's fine. But yeah, obviously you've got the Anker and Marsh thing, which is going great, and that's a really good thing you're doing in the world. And then obviously plans for Proud to Be Safe to come back and get out there again.
Yeah, it's great. So obviously, Abby runs Proud Safe. I've sort of gone to Anker and Marsh side of things, but I mean, most of my work comes through Abby still. Most of my speaking work is contacts Abby's got, and that's how it works. But it's great that because as much as Proud Safe has been a success, and we've got other speakers on there, for me, it was like always, what are you going to do next? I mean, you've worked at good companies. Hopefully, they get me into a presentation to raise the awareness and everything else, and then you follow that up with all the good things you do as the company. But for me, for a lot of companies, they get an inspirational speaker in and then do nothing else, and it lasts for 3 months, 6 months. I mean, some people are always going to be effective forever, like yourself. Some people you can catch them forever, but for half the people, 3 months later, 6 months later, they've probably gone back to what they did before. It's not until there's been an accident or near miss to get you back in again. So what you do next after you've got all this momentum has always been the bit for me, but what's been missing. Obviously, teaming up with Tim is like, yeah, we can go in and do an inspirational speak, and then one of the companies says, what do we do? What do we do with this inspirational speak? Well, this is what you need to do. So it's always been the bit. And again, even though we do behavioural safety still, the main focus is on human error through education and empowerment. And we've got a product called Here Too. Just looking at people's well-being, looking at I set people up to go to work. You set people up to fail, and then generally they fail. And then don't work unsafe. And you've set people up to fail, then you just tell them not to work unsafe. There's always been this paradox with safety that, if you're setting guys up to fail, then as soon as something goes wrong, you just want to blame the guys for working unsafely. You've been trained. Why are you doing what you do? So, to me, the whole moving to looking at mental health and mental well-being, like a holistic approach to health, safety, and well-being, is what's really exciting me again. So, yeah, I'm just buzzing both things. I mean, Abby's doing a fantastic job at Proud to Be Safe. She works. I mean, she's pregnant. She's got a second child due in June, and yet she's in the office every day. Just stuff she does, and she might be listening, so I'll say she's a really nice boss, but she tends to shout at me quite a lot. I don't know. There you go.
Mate, it's amazing, and I love the fact you can work so closely together. I mean, she comes across so well in the video I've seen. I look forward to meeting her one day.
And Sam, I mean, Sam's probably more affected by my accent than being a lad. He's probably suffering a little bit more. But yeah, Sam's turned the corner. He's living with me again now, so he's moved into my house. So with his dog, and it's like, yeah. So it's like we're catching up together. So it's really nice.
I mean, it's beautiful, mate, and I love the fact that you've turned it around and literally turned it around from not just like one workplace accident when you were 23 24, but also like a potential near-death experience when you're on a life support machine as well. I mean, not everyone necessarily knows about that part of the story unless they've read your book or heard you speak, at an event and stuff like that. So just for you sharing that is incredible. And yeah, I think you're right. I think that a lot of companies, they have a culture and they bring in a speaker and then think they've done enough, and it's like, well, no, there needs to be a whole piece behind that. So I don't know if you've seen Lewis's book, actually. At the end of the day, Lewis Senior wrote this.
Yeah, thank you, mate. You've sent it. I've got it.
To you already. And Lewis Senior's book was obviously, he actually had a collapse and a potential mental health issue, years ago from overworking. And his boss at Chevron said to him, will you become a corporate coach with us? Because nobody knows more after the incident. Nobody knows more than you about how people can get overwhelmed and stressed. I mean, what a cool boss that was, right? But the bottom line is he gave Lewis a chance to get Equilibria out there, to get e-colors out there, and to then start corporate coaching. And now everyone in Chevron, they're one of the safest and one of the most productive companies because they all do their e-colors. They all choose to do their e-colors and they work together in such a powerful way. But you're right, that backup piece of actually helping people more and more and more in high-risk environments and indeed just in day-to-day environments is so important. So, I love the fact that you're in there and that's your growth process. And I know we'll continue that conversation. So just to sort of wrap it up as we're at 90 minutes now, and I think there might be an England game that we can catch the last 20 minutes of or something. So if people want to book you or find you or what do they do? Do they go to a website?
Yeah, the Anker Marsh website or Proud Safe website. I mean, looked after most of the bookings anyway.
Yeah. So they can reach out to you via socials, LinkedIn's, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, Anker and Marsh or Proud to Safe. You get me on either one.
Speak to you, speak to Abby.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, she's the boss. So yeah.
Mate, I'm sure she's a wonderful boss. So say again.
She's a great boss.
Yeah, I mean, I work with Emma. I work a lot with Emma, and she's the boss. She does all the important stuff, and I sit here and have a chat with you, mate. So, listen, I just want to say to you, right, it's been really, really, really wonderful for us to have this conversation this time tonight. There's been lots of interaction. There will continue to be lots of interaction in the coming weeks and months to this interview because we'll put it out on a podcast. We'll put it out there. We'll let more and more people hear it. As far as I'm concerned, mate, you are doing, wonderful, wonderful work. You've been through something. Well, two things really that I said, the fall at work and then obviously the life support machine. You've been through two things there that many people will never experience. And yet you've turned them into a positive. I mean, it is the ultimate life remix, to be honest, Jason. It's the ultimate.
I mean, all I will say, I had so many regrets about it took me 25 years to get to this moment, and I used to beat myself up. But do you know what? I've realised it didn't. To change my life took one moment for me to change. It just took me 25 years to get to that moment. It's so different because it literally was a moment to think, no, I'm not doing this no more. I'm gonna look for another way. And that way just then became, the more you do, the more it presents itself to you. So yeah, it's been great, mate. I've loved it.
It goes, basically everything in life hinges on your decision. If you make a decision that it's a good thing, then you're going to work with it. If you make a decision it's a bad thing, you're going to wallow in it. And it takes time, but it takes us as long as it takes to come out of it. And you've had two huge, disasters, if you like, in your life to actually come back from. And yet here you are. And everyone's commenting, but I'll put Emma up. She just says, fantastic interview, fantastic what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing, Jace. Really, mate, you're an inspiration, mate. You've been an inspiration to me for many years. Keep it up. And I'm looking forward to us continuing our connection and working together more closely on whichever way we can find it, because I think you're a top fella, and I want you to enjoy the rest of this year, and let's get back to live events and let's get moving forward, right?
Cheers, mate. Cheers, guys.
Right, well, you stay where you are, mate, and I'll end the broadcast, but I'll just say goodbye to everyone. Thanks very much for watching, and thanks for sharing and etc. Big love, and I'll be back later in the week. So thanks all very, very much.